Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the show. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show. All right, guys, fantasy playoffs. We're in the middle of them. Some of us are trying to get to our fantasy championship. Some of us might already be in our fantasy championship. I know every league format is different, but I want to make sure that you guys get the right wide receivers on the field this week. So I'm going to start with the first player on my list, DeAndre Hopkins. This guy's seen 31 targets in the past 3 games. He's still a target hog wide receiver. He's still one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. He just plays in a bad offense, right? But Seattle has a very exploitable secondary. This very well could be a shootout game because both teams give up tons of points. And, they're teams that are involved in shootouts because of this. They have bad pass defenses, right? I think DeAndre Hopkins is a smash matchup this week. There's absolutely no one on Seattle that can have an answer for DeAndre Hopkins because almost nobody has an answer for DeAndre Hopkins, but definitely not Seattle. He should torch this defense. You want to start him this week. Next player on my list is going to be Jordan Addison against Detroit. Okay, against Detroit, you have to pass the ball to move the ball, right? I mean, you're not going to run on them. They have the number one run defense in the NFL. Now, Ty Chandler, maybe he finds something and produces some running game this week, but obviously they're going to have to pass to beat Detroit. This could easily be the highest scoring game on the slate. Detroit is a little bit vulnerable against the pass. So, obviously Jordan Addison has been pretty good since Mullen stepped in. He had a monster game 2 weeks ago. JJ's obviously the guy, but Jordan Addison gets a lot of work on this team. And a lot of it is because so much defensive attention is on Justin Jefferson. It's naturally, by default, going to leave Jordan Addison open more often than not. So, a talented player with less defensive attention on him, showing a good rapport with this quarterback. I love Jordan Addison this week. I think he has a big game against Detroit. Next player on my list is going to be Brandon Cooks. Now, this one is one of those where, if you have a reliable target hog, you're not going to play them over Brandon Cooks. But if you really need a wide receiver too, or if you really need a flex, he's a great option this week. I mean, he's playing against an exploitable secondary. Miami gives up a lot of points against the pass. Now, obviously, a big reason for this is because they're always torching teams and putting 45 points on the board. So teams are having to pass a lot to keep up with them. I very much see that as the game script in this game for the Cowboys. Miami is going to put points on the board. Dallas is going to have to score to keep up. And Brandon Cooks is way faster than anyone in the Miami secondary. So there's not really anyone that can run with him step for step. I see him breaking loose for a big play this game. I had him as a must-start 2 weeks ago. He almost connected with Dak on 2 big plays for touchdowns. They just missed each other. Last week, they just missed each other on that deep ball early in the game against Buffalo. Soon enough, they've got to connect on one of these deep shots. I think this is the week where that time that Brandon Cooks cooks the defense, no pun intended, he actually connects with Dak Prescott for a huge play and a touchdown. I see him having over 100 receiving yards in this game and getting in the end zone. I think this is a high-scoring game, potentially the biggest shootout of the week, and I think that Brandon Cooks has a monster game against the Miami Dolphins. Plug him in with confidence. Next player on my list is going to be Amari Cooper. Now, this is a guy who's seen 22 targets in the past 2 games. He's shown a very good rapport with Joe Flacco. Last game he had his best game that he's had in a while, but the fact of the matter is he's producing with him and Joe Flacco only completing 50% of their targets, between them, right? 11 out of 22 targets have been completed between the two over the last 2 games, and Amari Cooper's still producing very good fantasy numbers. Imagine if they start completing closer to like 70% of their passes, which is about what you're going to get from a quarterback and a wide receiver. So you got to figure the completion percentage between the two is going to go up. He's getting targeted heavily. They're playing the Texans. The Texans definitely can give up some yards through the air. I love Amari Cooper in this game. I think that the Texans are going to get absolutely destroyed. I really don't think the Texans have a chance to win this game. I think that Amari Cooper is absolutely going to go off. Next player on my list is going to be Chris Godwin. Now, this is a guy who last game, 12 targets, 10 receptions, 155 yards. Finally, a huge game for Chris Godwin. This is what we were waiting for, right? I mean, he's been getting a pretty similar target share to Mike Evans all season, but Mike Evans has been the one producing. Obviously, I didn't include Mike Evans on this list because he's an obvious must-start. There's, as well as he's done, nobody's going to be benching Mike Evans, right? But some people might be considering benching Chris Godwin because he's been really inconsistent all season. I think we're going to ride the hot hand here. I think we're going to go ahead and just start Chris Godwin. I mean, look, he's been good. Jacksonville has a very exploitable secondary. They can definitely give up points. They're not a good football team. Honestly, their defense sucks. I think that the Bucs should be able to move the ball on Jacksonville pretty easily. I think that Chris Godwin is going to see 10-plus targets in this game, and him and Baker Mayfield are finally starting to connect. I think this is a guy that you have to have in your starting lineup at least this week. We're going to see how he does this week and then maybe re-examine for later. But as far as this week is concerned, Chris Godwin is a must start. All right, guys, appreciate you tuning in. Catch you later.